All right, we're going to call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order on April 29th, 2024. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shea?
Present.
Commissioner Lemon?
Here.
Commissioner Espadilla?
Here.
And Mayor Donches.
Here. And Commissioner Gregg is absent. First, we have item 2, Commissioner Shea.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Item 3 of the minutes, Commissioner Lemon.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of March 28th, 2024.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to the Board of Public Works? All right, we'll move on to Board of Aldermen referrals. Item A, Commissioner Espadilla.
Resolution R-24-041, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $3,750,000 for the city's sewer infrastructure improvement and sewer and drain casting replacement programs.
And your motion is to recommend passage to the Board of Aldermen?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Next is the item B, Commissioner Shea.
Motion to authorize the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $925,143 for various wastewater capital improvements.
And the motion is to recommend to the Board of Aldermen that they pass this resolution, correct?
Yep.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next we have item C, Commissioner Lemon.
I motion to authorize the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $700,000 for various improvements at the solid waste department for Hills landfill.
All right, and the motion is to recommend to the Board of Aldermen that they go forward with this resolution.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Wastewater Department. Item E, Commissioner Espadilla. Item A, excuse me, Commissioner Espadilla.
I move to approve the user warrants as presented.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Shea.
I motion to approve Amendment 1 to the preliminary design phase services contract with Wright Pierce for the Phase 1 upgrades project in an amount not to exceed $92,235. Funding for this contract will be through Department 169, Wastewater Fund Wastewater Activity, Tank Drain, EFF Pipe Relocation.
Thank you. Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. So this is Amendment 1 to the preliminary design phase services of our Phase 1 upgrades at the facility. These projects, it's a list of priority projects that were determined by the 2021 wastewater facility plan. It's a 20-year plan. These were listed as most crucial projects. They included concrete repairs throughout the facility, upgrades to some equipment, pumps, valves, major gates, HVAC systems. During the preliminary design phase, there was some additional efforts required in research and design. We also added some things to the scope that we found that were associated with the project. Some of these things were, they were doing some work to our chlorine disinfection system. We had some issues with storage of chlorine, so we're looking at putting some additional tankage for storage. Also included in that was looking at different technologies to put our flow meters above ground versus underground. This would take them out of a corrosive environment, plus make it easier to maintain these items. The estimated cost currently of the construction part of the project is $7 million. This puts the preliminary design at about a little over 3%, which is reasonable for this size project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now gonna go on to the engineering department. Item A, Commissioner Lemon.
I move to approve the sewer service permits and fees as submitted.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Espetia.
I move to approve the poll license petitions as listed in the staff report.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Shea.
I move to approve change order 3 to the 2022 CIPP lining program with Kenyon Pipeline Inspection LLC of Queensbury, New York, in the amount not to exceed $950,000, funding through Department 169 wastewater, fund bond, activity, sewer infrastructure improvements.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. We're seeking to extend the contract with Kenyon Pipeline Services, a change order basically to extend their contract so they can continue CCTV and CIPP lining through this year. They've agreed to not raise their pricing more than 10%, which is the per purchasing policy is what allows us to extend their contract without going back out for a rebid. So that's the proposal. I'll be happy to address any questions.
Excuse me, anyone? Commissioner Shea?
What is the increase over their prior contract year?
So the original bid was a $1.4 million contract, and we've had two previous change orders. First one was for $8,976, and the second was for $945,000. This being change order 3 is $950,000. Total amended contract would be $3,316,571.
So where does that 10% number come in? I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
The 10% is in the original bid item, so they bid so much per foot to clean a pipe, so much per foot to line a pipe for various sizes. And so the purchasing policy is such that we can enter into a contract change order with a company as long as they don't increase their pricing more than 10%. The thought being that, pricing starts getting out of whack with the original bid, then we should go back out to bid to get competitive pricing. I will say, like, when we bid this out, Kenyon was a little bidder, obviously. We awarded the contract to them. They provided consistently good work for us. There have been market changes, so, an increase is reasonable to expect. And that's what this includes. That original bid was in 2022. Here we are in 2024. And they're not changing the original bid pricing any more than 10%.
So it's on a foot-by-foot basis is the, yeah. Okay, appreciate it. And I have one more follow-up if I may.
Yeah, of course.
So for wastewater, it's like an enterprise fund, is that right? How wastewater works?
Yes.
Will we ever be, and I know we just increased rates, and so we're not looking to do that again at any time in the immediate future, but do you think we'll ever be in a position with that where we no longer have to bond? Is that something that we're thinking about working towards? And it may make total sense for some financial reason to bond these things. But I'm just wondering if there's any sort of trajectory towards getting us into a place where we take the funds, have the enterprise fund built up to the point where we're able to meet planned capital expenditures.
So I'll let Carolyn O'Connor speak to that, but no, I don't think we'd ever get to the point where we wouldn't want to bond, only because that would require too much cash
Okay.
up front and would require us to raise the rates to a point where that we wouldn't want to do that. Bonding allows us to have a more steady, smaller increase.
And these projects benefit the community over many years, so we pay over
Right.
20
Yeah,
years.
I'm just thinking of $1 million amortized, or is it a 20-year bond, I imagine? Not everything's 20-year bonds we do. You know,
That's the most common.
Yeah, it may track out to 2.1 million. I'm just throwing that number out there,
Yes.
don't hold me to
Yeah.
that, but it may track out to that.
With the interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we may never get there, but it's something to keep in mind if we can create a channel towards that. I think in the long run, we may, the taxpayer or user in this case, both, would be, it would be to their benefit, potentially. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next, item D, Commissioner Lemon.
I move to approve the purchase of traffic signal equipment from Granite Traffic Solutions of Deerfield, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $8,000, and pedestals from Union Metal in an amount not to exceed $14,500. Funding will be through the Main Street Traffic Mitigation Fund and the DW Highway/Spitbrook Traffic Mitigation Fund.
So Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So this is, we have some work that we're doing through the paving program, out on Spitbrook Road at Terra Boulevard, but then also at Main Street and Canal. This work we're widening a road down there by Spitbrook to try to add a second, eastbound through lane. At Main and Canal, we're making some drainage improvements and other things, but we're gonna be paving, so we wanna improve the intersection corners. And that requires some traffic signal equipment modifications. What we're seeking to do here is to withdraw money from the corridor funds, 2 different corridor funds. We will purchase the equipment, we will provide that to Continental Paving, who's doing the work under the paving program, and they will install the equipment. So it's a little bit of a convoluted motion here, but the point is that we're withdrawing money from those quarter funds, which the board needs to approve no matter what the dollar figure is. They need to approve that withdrawal from those funds. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Commissioner Shea.
Are any of these materials granite bollards?
No, these are all, metal and signal foundation type of equipment.
The kind of the basis of my question, and I would imagine that you could imagine what it is that those granite bollards, you hit them with the car, they snap right over, so they're practically not even protective. And so if we were to do any new stuff, personally for me, I would like to not see any more of the granite posts, and so that's the nature of my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item E, Commissioner Spiti.
Move to approve the selection of intersection alternative 1 as the recommended alternative for the East Hollis Street and Bridge Street intersection project.
So I have a brief presentation for you. I'm going to go fairly quickly through it, but I welcome any questions along the way or at the end. Although I am looking for a motion here this evening, if anybody has any reservations or wants more information, we can defer that to next month, for instance, if you need a more broad or deeper presentation. But we're engaged in designing the East Hollis Street, Bridge Street intersection project. That's next to the bridges to Hudson there at the junction of Bridge Street and East Hollis Street, obviously. The purpose of the project, as defined in the engineering study, is to move traffic as efficiently as possible while improving mobility and access for all modes of transportation, provide an aesthetically pleasing gateway with neighborhood amenities into the city of Nashua. This is the project area highlighted in yellow. The major intersection being that X pattern there in the middle. This project started way back in 2014. The city entered into a project agreement with DOT. a steering committee was established and started meeting in May of 2018 after they'd gone through engineer selection and all those other things. Steering committee, from what I could tell, met at least 6 times, and they selected alternative 4 as the preferred alternate in September of 19. This is alternative 4. You can see it's a fairly significant change to the intersection. Where that X was, one of the directions taken out, changed the routing around quite extensively. Again, the thought, part of the thought with this project was to recoup some green space that you could do some gateway type treatments as you come into Nashua. The issue with this alternative is a couple things. One is, as we've gone through costing for the project, cost for this is much more significantly higher than was originally anticipated. Also, as part of the work, part of the engineering study, we sent out the archaeological sub, and as they went to explore to see if they could find any archaeological artifacts, they found asbestos pretty thoroughly throughout the intersection area. That has created the project cost to further balloon just because of the extent of the excavation. To build this intersection configuration, there's a lot of shifting of roadways. You gotta, do the full depth excavation to replace the gravels or place gravels where they didn't exist and build this whole footprint, so to speak, right? So that's caused the project to balloon significantly. McFarland Johnson started, we executed a final design contract with them in September 2021. We revised the project agreement January 22. When I first got here, I looked at that picture and I said, they were estimating it was $2.7 million. I said, there's no way, that's more. It's like $5 million or something. So on the face of it, I was concerned with the pricing. Director Cummings entered into a negotiation with DOT. We got them to agree to a cost-sharing arrangement at tiered levels. Up to $3.6 million. There was zero cost to the city because the match, what would normally be a local match, was going to be funded through toll credits. Between $3.6 million and $4.6 million-ish, the DOT agreed if costs escalated, we would enter into an 80-20 for that additional portion. And then above 4.5 or $4.6 million, contemplate a 50-50 share, federal city share. As I noted, asbestos was discovered by archaeological subconsultant, soil borings were completed, and soil testing, which affirmed the asbestos issue. And the construction cost estimate has ballooned up to $6.8 million. Originally, it was anticipated that the whole project could be constructed within that $3.6 million, and it would be no cost to the city for any of the work. So we're at 6.8 construction now, total project with engineering, design, construction administration, all that. It's about an $8.4 million project, which would equate to, at least a couple $1 million of city funds per that cost-sharing arrangement, assuming that DOT will be willing to step up and adhere to that agreement. Given that, and looking at how the traffic flows, the existing configuration is very, it flows well. It's like the best configuration you can have to process the traffic that goes through there. There are heavy congestion times, it's on the order of level service C and D, but we had looked at a whole bunch of alternatives through the design process, and nothing really improved the traffic flow. Alternative 4 did provide a contemplated future connection on the south side. You can see it very faintly, but to maybe a future train station down that area. So that was one of the benefits was, maybe a future connection to be incorporated in the intersection. Since then, that parcel that was contemplated to go through, they've come forward with a housing development project, which has been approved by planning board, and is moving to construction. So that routing for that connection has kind of gone away. So DOT and us have been looking at this, kind of looking at it, not even so much as what the city share is versus total project cost, but this is a fairly expensive project for what the return benefit is in terms of it doesn't really improve traffic flow much, if at all. So what we're proposing is one of the alternatives that was included in the study was alternative 1. it's sort of a do-nothing in terms of how traffic flows, but the idea was to make the area more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly. We would do some minor widening to accommodate some bike passage through the area. We would, rebuild sidewalks to bring those up to par, provide signalized pedestrian crossings where they don't currently exist and things like that. So it does still provide some opportunity for aesthetic improvements, gateway improvements, so to speak. There's that triangle area close to East Street, which there's pretty good footprint for things that could be done there, as well as some other areas. Here's a rendering during that study, and of course, this is a landscape concept. It shows a bunch of tree planting. It shows like a little park area in that triangle. And then this is a more, they kind of view that as a basic design, and this will be a higher level design, maybe some community garden, maybe a little playground, small playground in that area, in that triangle area. So there are a couple concepts that were contemplated during design for this concept to provide some kind of improvement gateway treatment. This project, I don't have a cost for what this is, but it would clearly be much less costly than the alternate 4, because we wouldn't be ripping up all the roadways. We'd be doing minor widening, sidewalks, which we'd have to do under either scenario and that sort of thing. So our recommendation is to move forward with alternate 1 as a preferred alternative. I mentioned that steering committee. Most of the people on that steering committee aren't with the city anymore. Wayne Husband was on it. I guess Tim was as well. So I know Lisa's been here through the duration of the project, so they, they're familiar with the project, but it didn't seem appropriate to try to reconvene that committee because it's not possible anymore. So we bring it to you for consideration. DOT is willing to make a change. I think they think it'd probably be appropriate, but certainly didn't want to just do that without bringing it to this board, and we'll probably bring it to infrastructure as well for their input as well at some point. So with that, I'll open up to any questions and see what the flavor of the board is.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Shea?
How does the adjustment affect our timeline for this in relation to the state tenure and all that?
It's a fair question. I mean, that asbestos issue threw us for a loop. It took us about a year to work that issue, so we're definitely behind where we wanted to be. DOT still has it in their program. They keep sliding the funds to the next fiscal year, So once we get agreement on which alternative to move forward, we can proceed orderly through the rest of the design to construction. Realistically, it'll take us another 1.5 years or so to get through that process until we can go into construction. We do have the 2 bridges that are being rehabbed currently that they're going to start work next month. They're going to do one of those per year, so that's going to take this summer and next summer to get through that process. Not that they couldn't happen concurrently, but maybe it's better if they don't.
And what, and so you're looking for a motion to adjust it to alternative 1 is the
Yeah, that is what we're seeking, yes.
And for design 4, it's kind of like a quasi roundabout, huh?
Yeah, I think the original goal when they started the project was for a roundabout, and then as they got into it, they realized that that couldn't process the volume of traffic that goes through there. It just wasn't going to work. It was going to need to be more than it could handle, because that clearly would provide that central area. So I think in developing alternative 4, I think the idea was to recoup as much of that design idea as we could, but to get the traffic flow we needed, it ended up with that cut through the center island. So that kind of didn't fully realize that roundabout concept.
That cut through right there, you kind of have like this weird set of lights where you've got to really get the
Right.
timing right, or it gets all screwed up, right?
Right,
So
and
it's such a short space for cars to fill in.
the East Hollis intersection, is functions it has the most challenge because it has so much traffic going through it. But yeah, in the upper left quadrant there, that has roundabout treatments. It's yielded entry type treatments, and then there's a signal at Bancroft Street there.
As a user, that east out to on Ferry Street is the tough part, the merger there, because people are
Right.
some people are trying to switch lanes and all this stuff, and there's, depending on the congestion, there's some good driver aggression that happens on a regular basis on that stretch. So I think this helps to maybe address some of that. But I take your point in terms of like excavation and all of that stuff and the return on value. Are there teeny tiny sharrows on there? We're not talking about sharrows again.
No, as shown here is just pavement arrows, like lane use arrows. Not even necessarily that's what would end up in the final plan, but just showing intent. But this has multiple lanes circulating, multiple lanes on each approach.
Yeah, the one piece of actual constituent feedback that I've gotten about this area is, aside from that merger point being tough for all drivers, we have a constituent that lives in French Hill and bikes to work in Hudson and has a heck of a time kind of doing that movement, because he comes down Bridge Street and then he's trying to stay in the lanes.
Yeah.
You know, designating one of the two lanes as like, okay, yes, please, this is where the bikes should be, I think would be a good idea for the bridge project. That's probably like not this. But I think to your point, you're trying to improve access for all modes of transportation, right?
Right.
So whatever we can do as part of this project and the bridge project to create a welcoming environment for bicycles and create the impression among drivers that bicyclists belong on the road. Even though that's the law, we need reminders. You know, that would be my ask in terms of mindfulness. I'd support the change, and I'm sure there's some time sensitivity in terms of wanting to get this done somewhat adjacent to the bridge project. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say that's right. We don't want to tie that area up forever, you know, so it'd be nice to orderly complete the bridge and then move forward and complete this, and then we can get out of there and leave people alone for a while, you know. So I think that's fair to say. And this design, because this is much more minor in nature in terms of impact, I think this will be easier to get through the final design process to the point that we're ready to build it. The other one was more work for sure.
And you'll work with the state to see if they'll go about doing 100%. You think that this project would fall into that? Is that
Yeah, we're still, the agreement still stands, or they haven't asked us to amend that yet, so that cost-sharing table I showed you is still valid. If this project, you know, we were well outside the 4.6 million with our current estimate, so I think that would give them pause, and they'd want to have another discussion about that, but if we can keep this within that 100% range or slightly into the 80-20, I think we'd be in good shape.
And the design alternative is needed to continue that conversation.
Right, to proceed to get the additional costing. And this won't be the last time you'll hear about the project. We'll be back. As we advance alternate one, should that be what the board supports, we'll be back with additional, more detailed information on the costing and the layout and things like that. So you'll get other opportunities to see this in more detail as it goes forward.
Appreciate it.
Let the record show that Commissioner Gregg has arrived and is present. Commissioner Aspitia.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that, you know, I think alternative 4 would have been great, but I think, given the asbestos, I think and just the increased cost, I don't think it's gonna be feasible, and unfortunately, it's gonna hurt too many then we would be on the hook for a lot of the costs, so I think switching to alternative 1 makes sense, and I'm hoping that, yeah, along with what Commissioner Shea said, if we can make some adjustments to some markers to let folks know about bikes, I think that would be helpful.
I think Tim. Why don't you
Commissioner
come- why don't-
Cummings, he
why don't
wants
you
to
come?
speak. He's gonna speak.
Thanks. So, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I just wanted to actually ask a question or clarify one point. I saw some images that had some parks rendered on it, and it's my last understanding is that New Hampshire DOT hasn't agreed to pay for any of those parks or landscaping improvements. So I just want to make it clear for the record that even though you're seeing this image right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's something New Hampshire DOT would cover from a landscaping perspective. I think that's a further conversation that we need to have with them. And I just don't want anyone to leave here today thinking that those parks would be part of the transportation project.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, so the motion is item E, which is to approve alternative one. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item F is an informational item. If no one has any questions about that, we will move on to Solid Waste Department. Item A, Commissioner Gregg.
I motion to approve a 3-year contract between the City of Nashua and Ondas Mechanical and Appliance LLC of Merrimack, New Hampshire for refrigerant recovery services at the Nashua Recycling Center at an annual cost not to exceed $20,000, pending approval of the fiscal year 25 operating budget. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 55 Other Contract Services.
Mr. LaFleur?
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent of Solid Waste. This contract is going back to the company that's already been doing the work. They're phenomenal. They actually lowered their price for this 3-year contract, so we're getting it for even a better price than what we did the last time. They take care of all our refrigerators, our ACs, any humidifiers, anything that has CFCs in it. And then we sell the metal in our metal, which you'll see in the next couple contracts coming up.
Anybody? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Yeah, Commissioner Shea.
I think Commissioner Shea had a question.
Commissioner Shea, I didn't see you,
I
sorry.
just wanted to, and I appreciate it, I just wanted to ask, so these gases are valuable, right?
Yes.
And so that's the nature of why the contract is such a low contract, because there's some benefit to the.
Yep, they capture it and then they reuse it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Shea.
I move to approve a 3-year contract between the City of Nashua and North Coast Services LLC of Concord, New Hampshire for the processing and disposal of universal wastes at an annual cost not to exceed $75,000, pending approval of the fiscal year 25 operating budget. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 55, Other Contracted Services.
Mr. LaFleur?
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent of Solid Waste. So this is another 3-year contract. This takes care of all of our televisions, TVs, anything that comes in electronics, CFs, the fluorescent bulbs, anything that gets shipped out from the landfill, this is what we pay for.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Lemon.
I move to approve a 3-year contract between the City of Nashua and Winfield Alloy Incorporated of Atkinson, New Hampshire for the recycling of scrap metal at the Four Hills landfill. Revenue generated through this contract will be directed to Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 44, Charges for Services.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent of Solid Waste. Another 3-year contract. I'm sorry they all come up at the same time, but at least we don't have to hear about it for 3 years. Yeah, so this is for our metal. We collect curbside, we bring it in, we put it in the pile, and this is anything that the residents bring in and drop off. It was a bid out. We went out to bid, we got some contracts to come in. Again, a revenue. This was the best company. They actually were our 3-year contract before, so they won again. So we're excited to continue working with them.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item D, Commissioner Spitia.
Move to approve a 3-year contract with ChemServe Environmental Analysts of Milford, New Hampshire for water quality testing services at Nashua landfill sites in the amount not to exceed $300,000. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification 53, Professional and Technical Services.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent Solid Waste.
Another 3-year contract. This is for our groundwater testing. It shows a lot of money there, but if you remember, I came in for a change order a couple times for ChemServe. This is directly related for our, from DES. They can regulate us and tell us that they want more testing done anywhere. So I'm going for this large amount just to cover it, for any anomalies that DES may throw at us throughout the 3 years.
Commissioner Gregg.
Is there any part, sorry if I'm not speaking directly in the mic, is there any part of this that can be covered by wastewater services?
This is a completely
Completely
different thing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is for our landfill through DES, Department of Environmental Services, so it doesn't have anything to do with wastewater. This is actually groundwater. That, anything that leaches into the ground around the landfill.
Sure, but the lab services inside of wastewater can't be utilized in any sort of fashion or way to
It's-
test groundwater?
I'm sure they could do, some of it could be done, but not the more specific ones like PFAS or any of the heavy-duty ones, and we don't want to have the liability on
Sure,
the city.
PFAS.
We'd rather have a company do it and not have any issues with DES saying, well, you're skewing the tests or anything.
Okay, cool, thank you for the clarification.
I'll just add one other thing, and we really don't have the capacity or the ability to do that work in that lab. Even though it is a certified lab, we're limited on what we can do for
Okay.
testing, which is pretty much limited to wastewater type
Okay, thank you.
sludge testing, that type of thing.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we have, we're on to the next page, Parks and Rec. Item A, Commissioner Gregg. One second.
I motion to approve the purchase of a 2024 Toro Procore SR72 for a price of $41,681.91 pursuant to the Sourcewell contract number 18696-CEC. Funding will be through Department 177 Parks and Rec, Fund General Account, Classification 71, Equipment.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Conant, Superintendent of the Parks and Recreation Department. This is a scheduled replacement for a vertidrain that we currently own that was purchased in 2000. We use this attachment to relieve soil compaction. It's a major issue when you're talking about trying to grow grass and gold mouse. High traffic areas always tend to have compaction. And one thing grass doesn't like to grow on is a very hard rock surface. So this is going to help us create an environment that's conducive to good turf conditions. I'm pretty excited that we're going to have it. I'm very excited that it's only got a lead time of 4 to 6 weeks, and it's currently in stock. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this if there are any.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We have an informational item regarding landscape design for the Broad Street roundabout. Are there questions or comments about this? Commissioner Lemon.
I have a question. What's in the middle? Maybe it's my elderly eyes, but it says no plants?
There's a tree currently right there now.
Okay.
So what I've told everyone is a 10-foot radius around the tree is not to be disturbed. So
Okay.
that's that little circle that you're seeing, Commissioner.
Gotcha.
Great question.
Commissioner Spezia.
When are you hoping to have this in?
I think there's a couple more stages that we have to go through, right, Director Photo? I guess I'd be hopeful that, sometime this summer, if you want to peg me, let's say before July 1. I don't know if that's possible, but.
We actually have, so I think what Superintendent is referring to is we have some legislation that will be going in to transfer money from the street department budget, some leftover snow money, into the Park and Rec department. So I think Alderman Gouveia will be, and hopefully the mayor will be sponsoring that
Great.
legislation. So we have to wait until that runs its course.
Sounds good.
Here we go.
Commissioner Shea.
And what is the kind of work plan for maintenance of this site? I know that we had an outfit come in, permaculture outfit, maybe 6 years ago or so, and get this going. And the residents felt it was overgrown. And so I'm just this seems similar to the previous deployment, and so I'm just wondering what, you know, if the maintenance level on this is different, what your thoughts are on, you know, the feasibility of keeping it nice?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I may. Great question, Commissioner Shea. So the last planting was done previous to my employment, and it was done by Parker Designs. I believe the design was supposed to create something that was sustainable in nature. Some people look at sustainable landscape and might think it's unkept. And maybe that's why some people consider it an eyesore. I know one thing that was very hard for the staff to maintain in that is that it became overgrown very quickly. And then it's hard to distinguish what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. One thing in coming up with this design, I was very cognizant of that. What you'll see here in the middle is a lot of Vinca minor, which is a low-growing ground cover. It's going to be very easy to identify weeds that are growing above that Vinca minor because it only wants to grow 3-4 inches off the ground. So anything that sprouts through that, you know, we can identify easily that it's a weed and therefore do away with it.
So we'll be out there hand pulling like a couple times a year? And
Minimal. And there are products that we can put down that limit the amount of weeds that come up as well, which we do currently use.
Appreciate it.
So, but in terms of maintenance, that was one thing I thought of. And I believe this to be relatively low.
Thank you.
All right, administration. Item A, Commissioner Shea.
I motion to approve the creation of the Fleet Department within the Division of Public Works effective July 1st, 2024.
Speak to this. So this is something that I think I mentioned in prior meetings that we've been wanting to do really since I became a director. And we now have, at the last meeting, we now have Superintendent Rush, who I think is still over there, congratulations, who's doing a great job. But we have $35 million worth of equipment, about 400 pieces. We've been talking with Director Cummings about a centralized fleet. We still have some more discussions to do on that, but it makes sense to, at this point, to create that department and have a separate budget from the street department. It really should be its own department, so. And Superintendent Rush has already done a tremendous amount with that department, so very excited about where it's headed. Any questions?
Commissioner Gregg.
Do you see any cost savings, like immediately out of this, like when you've done any sort of,
I think there will definitely, especially when we're looking at the centralized fleet, there will definitely be cost savings. We're also looking at some software that will help us be far more efficient, that will detail everything from the parts that are needed to all of the mileage. It'll even, it'll be something that each director can look at their fleet and understand what's been done, what inspections are coming up, when oil changes need to be done, when a vehicle might need a brake job, things like that. So all of those things will create a lot of efficiency, yes. And the superintendent can speak to a lot of the efficiencies he's already achieved if you'd like, but yes.
that's great.
You want to hear from him now?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if we've got.
Since he's here.
We'll put him right on the spot.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Rush. Just to back up a little bit on what you were looking for. So we currently track everything through a antiquated software system that doesn't talk to any of our other systems. So like fuel is done separately through its own software program, and it doesn't carry mileage over or any vehicle information, so that's all separate. So this software system that we were talking about should help us not over-service vehicles, because that's tracked on a spreadsheet, and also tracked to our RTA software, which is also antiquated, which is what we're looking to replace. So putting all these programs together will start to enable us to keep track of what we're actually utilizing, where our problems are, and what we can do to correct those issues, and that'll bring cost savings with parts, vehicle maintenance, or over-maintenancing vehicles, because that sometimes happens if the numbers aren't correct, or the driver reports the wrong number to us, or the mileage gets entered correctly into the spreadsheet. So this system will catch all that, flag that stuff. We'll also be able to capture more warranty, so that'll be a cost savings too, and just kind of bring all this stuff to our attention so that we can grab it and not let it go where it gets out of warranty date, or, we forget to return a core. So as far as that, that would be where the cost savings are. The other thing, with the integration of the fleet department being its own and having its own budget, right now I have to look at each individual department's budgets, and I have to track all that and, go over that with the other superintendents. And that can kind of get confusing because some budgets have different line numbers and they're not all the same. So we're kind of having to figure out where we're gonna get it from to pay for what parts, for what truck, and so this will kind of centralize everything and kind of save some time, more than money. So I'm not sure if that answers all your questions.
Yeah, it does. So we've been tracking a lot of this stuff in terms of software through Excel, Excel
Some
spreadsheets?
of it is, yeah, so like our equipment list is on, an Excel spreadsheet. We also have, an automotive software that we currently pay for that's a little bit antiquated. I think it's been maybe about 14 years in use.
Okay. Wow.
It does track some things, but it doesn't talk to anything. The new stuff that we were talking about getting, we have GPS units in our truck. This software will track through the GPS systems, so it will upload real-time mileage, engine hours, engine lights, things like that, and it'll send us an email and kind of correct the problem before it gets worse, or, if the driver doesn't notify us, the system should notify it for us.
What's the name of the software, out of curiosity?
The software that we're looking into is Fleetio.
Fleetio, okay.
Yeah,
What
the
is it?
software that, Fleetio. Would be
Fleetio?
I-O, yep.
Okay.
And the software system that we currently have is called RTA.
And we'll be providing more information on Fleetio, maybe even
Yeah, we just
next
started,
meeting?
yeah, we just started digging into the software in the last month or so, so we're still trying to figure out what's out there and what's gonna work best for the city and the type of assets that we have.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor, did you raise your hand?
No, I was scratching my ear.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, item B, Commissioner Lemon.
I motion to approve the creation of the Recreation Department within the Division of Public Works, effective July 1st, 2024.
So one of the things that we found when we were looking for a superintendent of Parks and Recreation was either somebody had a strong background in parks or they had a strong background in recreation. And so that the combination really didn't exist. So we hired Superintendent Conant, who had a great parks background, and that's really the bulk of the department, honestly. And then we decided, as we looked a little more closely at recreation, we found that there really wasn't enough attention being paid with recreation. We weren't spending enough time developing programs and looking at other things we should be doing. We've hired a couple of really great people, and then we put Lauren Byers about a year ago, 2 years ago now, as the recreation administrator, and she's been doing a great job leading that department. It should be noted that she works a lot of hours, nights, weekends, and they're really working to expand that program, so their programs. So it makes sense, I think, at this time since this is the way we're functioning anyway, recreation is functioning as a separate department, and this is another situation where the budget is all rolled together, and it gets very confusing about, which money is in recreation, which money is on the park side. So I think it makes sense, and we want to talk a little more about staffing later on, but we think it makes sense to do this at this time. And it should be noted, too, that this is not really a new model. This is something that actually was in place when, you remember Alderman Karen, when she was the recreation manager, the departments were separate. When Alderman Karen retired, she was the recreation manager, they combined them. So we're looking to go back to that previous model because we think it's more effective and efficient. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to add anything? Would you like to have some? Sure.
Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I've had a chance to review this proposal as well. I just want to be on the record as saying I think this is a good best practice. Other municipalities have done this. This will create an efficiency, better streamlined communication, and help with operations overall. So I just want to recommend to the Board of Public Works that you pursue this reorganization.
Lauren, did you want to add anything, or? Okay.
Anybody? Commissioner Shea?
I think this makes a lot of sense. The one question that comes to mind is to what extent, in terms of like booking facilities and things of that nature, is it important to have that kind of direct line of communication between the maintenance of the parks, those responsible for the maintenance of the parks, and those responsible for the programming piece? And how will we ensure that that's not impacted by this?
That's a very good point. So Parks and Recreation do need to work very closely together. And that is happening now. And they are, again, Lauren is overseeing Recreation. Superintendent Conant is overseeing the parks. They're working very well together. They communicate on a regular basis, but I think that's why it's really important too that those two departments be in the same division so that we ensure that communication does exist, because that's really important. One really can't exist without the other.
And you alluded to this, but it sounds like we would be looking to kind of grow the extent to which we have people dedicated to this area. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
That's good. Yeah, I think Lauren could definitely use more support because she works on it. So yeah.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we have the director's report.
This is our paving program. Continental Paving is shown reconstructing sidewalk ramps on April 10th in preparation for some paving on Pine Street. This is Continental Paving shown milling East Dunstable Road on April 12th. ED Sweat is shown constructing the ADA ramp at the Cotton Transfer Bridge on April 16th. Nashua Parks and Recreation, Eversource, and Nashua High School South held a tree planting ceremony in honor of Arbor Day. Keith Richard, the principal of Nashua South, and the Green Club from the school participated in the planting of the tree near the Panther Preschool Playground. This is the new basketball court at Phil's Grove. You can see on the right the old court, and on the left the new court. And you can also see on the left where you actually have kids playing on it. Right? Very excited about that. There's a lot of spring edging that's going on around the city on our baseball and softball fields. I was speaking with Superintendent Conant today. They're very busy. It's a crazy season for them. This is LaJoy Field that was done on April 10th. We've been dealing with some washouts. We've had a lot of rain. This is a T-ball field in Lincoln Park. Here the surface water drainage issues need to be addressed. And this was from a rain event that happened this month. This is another example of some of the vandalism that we're dealing with. This is at the lower field at Greeley Park.
Oh,
It was the first week in April. I know. This has happened a fair amount, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. So haven't we had like bollards and things in place to prevent access to those fields? Like, have they been disrupted, or like, do you have any idea how they got in? What can we do to?
That field is accessible in a number of different ways, but yes, we're starting to look at that. We're starting to look at putting boulders and other things that will prevent access. I know we've done that at Atherton, and so we'll continue to try to figure out ways to.
Do we know if I think there was like a bollard that fell out of place, like up in Greeley Park, up by the grills. And last year, there were a number of trucks and things that would be driving out onto that area. Do we know if that's been shored up?
So there are some areas.
Brian, can you?
Sorry. Sorry about that. Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Brian. There are some areas that people still sneak in there. And it's not just through those bollards. I've seen them actually hop the curb and drive
Right out.
onto the grass right down there. And it's the same thing on the other side of the park too, where the gazebo is. I don't know what the answer is. We put up signs. People don't always listen to the signs, so.
Is that something we can, like, the board, I don't think we could do this, but could the Board of Aldermen set up a fine circumstance where if someone pulls their vehicle up on the lawn and there was appropriate signage, that they could be fined $100 or something like that? Do you think that might be worth exploring? Because if there's no recourse, it's like, you know, what is the cost of taking the risk of going up onto the field? And if it's that somebody might come and nicely ask me to leave, that's not a very big risk.
Right.
It's very true. I mean, who, at the end of the day, who enforces this? I guess would be my question too.
It's something we could look into.
Yeah,
Commissioner Shea.
that might be worth it, just because you know, the trees and everything up there are so old and beautiful, and to see
Yeah.
trucks rolling up, you know, it's not,
I agree. It is an issue, so.
sorry to take us off. on
No, it's okay.
a tangent, but yeah. Appreciate it, thank you.
This is a family enjoying our new playground at Fields Grove. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty great playground. The street crews repaired a sinkhole due to a void under the duck bank on West Hollis Street. This is repair of a damage to a lawn and walkway from plowing. We did. Collection staff performed some CCTV inspection work of stormwater drains in the area of Graham Drive to determine if the area could support some more drainage. We did several tours at wastewater, including Merrimack High School, UNH students, and the Nashville Public Library. This is our wastewater electrician, working on the installation of a new chemical controller in the wet weather facility. These allow staff to observe tank levels accurately so that we can sense how much chemical is in the tank. The mechanics are continuing to work on secondary clarifier number 2 at the wastewater treatment facility. They're working on grouting the new drive as well as fabricating parts for the arms. The refurbishment of the outbound scale at the landfill was completed. All of the load cells and the totalizer were replaced, and the scale deck was resealed. And our second household hazardous waste collection for 2024 will be held in Milford on Saturday, May 4th. Any questions?
Anybody? Commissioner Shea.
For next month, do you think we could get some additional thoughts on the Sharrows on Main Street? That concept and what it might cost to deploy?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And, well, I guess it's not commissioner's comments yet, that's all. Thank you.
All right, well, we'll go to commissioners' comments then. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you. I just want to say, we went down to Atherton Park with the boys, and Parks has really done such an amazing job with that in the division, and it's really nice. Because we've been down there a bunch over the years, and just to see it all tuned up, it's such a big space, and it's so key for the neighborhood. It's a great time, and they loved finding all of the little characters.
It's 'cause all the animals.
They loved it, and they were very concerned that the T-Rex skull might be real, It's made of concrete, so it's like, it's kind of plausible when you're a kid, and so, but it's a really fun setup, and I just wanted to say, good job, and thank you, appreciate it.
I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Gregg on doing the Boston Marathon.
I was gonna ask about that.
Survived.
He's still alive.
Still standing.
He's still walking. That's pretty good.
He was out at Chamber after hours, like the night afterwards.
He was?
I was like, how are you not in like a giant ice bath for like the next 3 weeks?
Wow.
Thank you.
Any
I-
other commissioners' comments? Commissioner Lemon?
Yeah, I had a constituent stop by the soup kitchen today to ask me about, he has 2 little kids, a 7-year-old and a 4.5-year-old, and they were at Grilly, and they wanted to know if the playground equipment at Grilly could please be improved, because they didn't have they spend a lot of time in the city parks, they go from park to park, but there was not enough stuff to play on. And so I was wondering if we could look into that.
We'd be happy to. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? All right, well, we will go to personnel items. Item A, Commissioner Speaky.
Second, yep. So, move to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of March 28th, 2024.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Gregg.
I motion to accept the retirement of John Lyons, groundskeeper maintenance, effective April 26, 2024.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Shea.
I move to approve the addition of 1 position, collector equipment operator, landfill.
I can. Is Jeff? He left, okay, sure. I was gonna let him just speak to it. So, no, I think he left.
Okay.
So we currently borrow probably 5 to 6 people almost daily from the street department, which creates some tension between the 2 departments, because that puts a monkey wrench in what Superintendent Ibarra is trying to do. And so we also have more requirements that have been put on us from our permits for maintaining the cleanliness of the facility. They want us to pick papers more frequently, and there will be requirements coming in our new permit. So this position can do both of those things. This position can fill in and for any of the collection equipment operators at the landfill, or out on the streets, or can help with maintenance of the facility. So it makes sense to add this position for those purposes.
All those in favor of the motion,
I
say
think-
aye.
I
do have
think-
a question.
Okay, Commissioner
Not just
Shea,
here this
sorry.
time.
Sorry.
So for the creation of the position, it sounds like there's more work. Is the person going to meet that amount of work, or are they gonna meet that amount of work and then some? I guess that's my question.
I'm not sure I understand.
So, so this is a new position. It's meant to address an increase in demands on work for the department. And we are hopeful that it also offsets the amount that we have to depend on other departments to pull people from.
That's
I
correct.
just wanna make sure. I
Yes, that's
understand.
correct.
Okay, so
You're
it's
correct.
doing a little bit of both.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, in this position, the collection, it's very confusing, all of the titles. I'm not sure who came up with them. But the collection equipment operator landfill positions are the people who empty the containers here in the landfill. Also, they do all the school dumpsters and all of that. So, and they also have in their job description to do some laboring. So this is the most versatile of all the collection equipment operators that we have.
Anyone All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We now have on some additional personnel items, a non-public session. Commissioner Shea.
I move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A 3(2)B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes.
Wait, did we have to
Oh,
do
is it a
roll?
roll call?
We have to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Shea?
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Here.
Commissioner Gregg?
Yes.
Commissioner Spedia?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes. So we're now going, the motion is approved, and we're going to go into non-public session. back in public session. Alderman Shea, or Commissioner Shea.
I move by roll call to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works Personnel non-public meeting of April 29th, 2024, until such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality would no longer be served.
Does that need a roll call?
I believe so.
All right, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gregg?
Yes.
Commissioner Spedia?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. So we've concluded the business of the evening. Commissioner Shea, would you like to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, okay. I would move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Public Works.
All right, motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and the meeting of the Board of Public Works is adjourned at 6:29 PM.